Hello, I'm Andy Brown. I'm the editor of International Construction Magazine, and I'm joined by Scott Hazelton, Managing Director at IHS Markit, a leading provider of information analytics and solutions for government and financial markets. And today we're going to be talking about the construction industry in America. So thank you very much for your time and for joining us, Scott.
Oh, a pleasure to be aboard, Andy.
Excellent. So if we could just start then with a fairly kind of general take on it, kind of how would you assess the state of the construction industry in America at this time?
It would be, as I say, it's weakish, and it depends very much upon where you're playing. So the worst place, of course, right now is housing. With housing starts down, permits down, sales actually down across the board. Residential is looking at a pretty tough year or two coming up, and it had a pretty tough 2022 on top of that. So residential sector is seeing some slowing. Now, of course, it's a very strong rate of activity in 2020 and 2021, so it's still not a bad rate. It's just a decline. And renovations probably are better than new. Certain states are in more challenging cases than other ones are. Most of our home building occurs in about 5 states: California, Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Georgia. And of those states, we're seeing some pressures in California, Arizona in terms of prices moving downward, but still pretty hot in Florida. Actually, quite a strong market still. Now, we should leave residential markets. Oh, and within residential, it's mostly a single-family problem, not a multifamily problem. Now, the U.S. is heavily skewed towards single-family in terms of spending. Over 2/3 of it is going into single-family. But we do have an economy that is growing. Employment surprisingly strong in spite of relatively weak GDP growth. And those people are from households that have to live someplace. So that means apartments or condos as opposed to single family. So the brunt of that downturn is borne on single family. As you leave that sector and look at the non-res side, the really strong growth is in the infrastructure segment, courtesy of a number of government programs, infrastructure, acts, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, which really has a lot of money for green energy in there. And of course, even money still being spent from the AARP, the Recovery Act from COVID. So all that money is still churning out there to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. So it's a very strong market looking forward for highways, streets, especially rail to some degree, energy, of course, with IRA. And in the middle, you've got the non-res structures, and those buildings designed for government use, like healthcare, education, kind of a middle of the road outlook. 2-3% growth in real terms, not strong, but not a contraction. The office retail sector is a little more challenged with migration to e-commerce and work from home. There's a lot of renovation activity in that space. In fact, there's been a great study done by the American Institute of Architects, look at the share of fees of architects being allocated to purpose, and we're at an all-time high of renovation spending. So it's for commercial sector spending. So it's interesting market. Good news again if you're in things like sheetrock and HVAC, paint. Bad news if you're in structural steel or concrete.
Okay, thank you. And you touched on it there in terms of some of these kind of government initiatives, but I know it's slightly older news now. But how important for construction in America was kind of the passing of the infrastructure bill, and is it now all about kind of how that is kind of parceled out and implemented?
Yes, I mean, so the backstory, it's a $2.1 trillion bill, which is a bit of misleading because we have the regular highway bill. The FAST Act was the last version of that. Those are 5-year bills that tend to recur, and so in that 2.1 trillion is the assumption that there are 2 5-year renewals of that highway bill. That's roughly, 1.6 trillion of that 2.1 trillion.
Okay.
But there's still $500 billion left, $580 billion left over, which is net new money being spent over only 8 years, not 10. And even more compressed because typically that first year, which would have been last year, is spent in design work. If you have to acquire land, engineering and so forth. Construction starts really this year and then ramps up from there. So this year we see the first really big slug, probably $80 billion of net new money coming in this year. A little more next year. It peaks in 2025, and then it tails off. So you'll see a strong level of spending in 2026 and beyond, but the growth rates tail off because that sort of bell-shaped curve of projects begins to taper downward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the next 8 years, certainly this is a driver. And you compound that with things like the CHIPS Act, which the money being spent on construction is relatively small. I think it's about $11 billion or so. But if you're in that one spot in Ohio or Texas or New York where that chip plant is built, that could be a $1 billion of equipment going into that plant for a couple of years of construction. So where they occur, it's a game changer. Where they don't occur, of course, it doesn't do anything for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thank you. And I know that this is a problem for construction kind of worldwide, but I'd just be interested to know kind of how big a problem in America is kind of a lack of kind of workers. We were just talking about the infrastructure bill, and would there be a potential that there isn't going to be actually enough workers in order to be able to implement all of these projects?
Yeah, workforce is a problem, certainly in construction, in fact, manufacturing in general. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
probably even economy-wide, you could argue the number of help wanted signs even for jobs like waiters and healthcare workers especially. But certainly construction, there is a shortage, and that is most intense in the skilled crafts that take the longest time to develop, where we've had a lot of retirements we've had past recessions like 2007, 8, but there's a migration from construction into, in that case, energy sector, where some of the skills transferable, and they came back to construction again. With 2020, we saw, given the average age of these workers, all the retirements, this didn't come back, and so that workforce challenge is there. To create that degree of skill takes years, not months, and many states, many companies are aggressively working to improve that shortage, but it's going to take some time to sort through. And so we do see the case where, in terms of construction, cost, material prices are beginning to come back down as supply chains rationalize, but the labor markets are tight. So that's going to be a problem going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. And my final question really would be to kind of ask you to kind of look into your crystal ball and to kind of give us some of your predictions for the kind of US construction industry. And I guess I would also just kind of add on to that, kind of if you could touch on, when there's the next election in America, obviously, whether that might, how that might impact things depending on kind of who gets in.
Right. So the good news is that we've got a lot of programs that are in place with multi-year expiration dates, if you will. So the near term on the government policy side is pretty clear. You're not going to unwind them.
Okay.
Anything that you were to invoke would be occurring again without lag down the road. And I think we all learned from the last midterm election. It's hard to forecast the outcomes of these events. And right now we're still looking at who would even be running for president in 2 years. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess there and say that I think from a policy perspective, not much will change the construction side. The question would be the energy sector. And would there be some change of urgency, to different kinds of fuel types of spending? That's really, beyond the forecast of an economist, and much more in the case of political scientist.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking that aside, there's no question that construction itself is, if you will, turning green, and I mean that in the sense that regulations are occurring, but increasingly we've already trained our architects to build green buildings. So in some cases, regulations are sort of catching up with what the market's demanded anyway. So focus on renewable materials, energy efficiency in buildings. Those are going to be there. Transitions of fuel, from oil or natural gas to electric, I think is going to be part of that process of new construction spending. Sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
And then the commercial side, eventually we will rationalize um, our services sector, broadly speaking. Retail, there is some floor to what e-commerce can deliver. And once that's achieved, then we stop that churn of retail properties. We're already seeing, I think, a floor under work from home and perhaps a small change the other way. As these spaces are reconfigured and we've got better plans for what employees want to do, that also settles out. And right now, the reality of the U.S. job market is that there are multiple jobs for every applicant.
Mhm.
So right now, workers have got the negotiating power in the marketplace. If they want to work remotely, they have that power. Now, as the economy slows down, perhaps even has a mild recession, some of that marketing power goes away, and you can perhaps force a bit more of in office space. You will see how that evolves. Our culture will evolve too in terms of how we work together, and we'll make some of these new, if you will, features new in the past 3 years work for
Mhm.
the long term in terms of virtual meetings and so forth. They're much more cost effective than travel, for example.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, great. Scott, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.